Hey guys, if you missed my last episode, I built this clamp rack and really enjoy it, and I've been using it a lot, and it's great. It works really well for me. This episode, I'm building this lumber rack, and for me, this has been a journey, and I'll show you why, so stay tuned. In today's episode, I'm going to build a new wood rack. I built this thing about 6 months ago, and well, I've already filled it up. I even put some garage stuff in here. So I got to fix that, and I need something that's more efficient, that'll hold the wood that I need. I know there's some stuff here that I probably shouldn't keep, but I hate to get rid of any good piece of wood. So let's go look and see what we're going to do. Several years ago, I built this great storage cabinet in my garage, really to store a lot of stuff. And I have this one space that I left open because I didn't have anything to put here, and now I do. The lumber rack that I'm going to build is going to fit right in this space, and I think it's going to work out really good. So let's get started. Well, the first thing I did in trying to figure out what I needed for a wood rack was to take all this stuff out of my existing wood rack and sort it into piles. And I realized that I have a lot of different piles and a lot of different kinds of wood that I still want to keep. And I also realized that for me, there's a process I have to go through to design something that will work for me in the long run, because the one that I built about 6 months ago, I already outgrew and it didn't work. And there's tons of wood rack designs out there, but I think the important thing is to think about the process you go through in designing a rack that works for you and me, and not so much the design itself. So let's get started on that design. I also realized that wood rack that I built 6 months ago would cost twice as much today as it did 6 months ago. And that's just unbelievable. So in the design that I'm going through, I'm trying to reuse as much of that plywood and use some other materials to create a wood rack that works for me, that will hold this wood, but will also keep the cost down. And that's a challenge. Well, here's a wide variety of my wood collection that I can't seem to part with. One of the advantages of building something is you get a chance to take it apart. And considering I use both screws and glue, it took me a little bit of effort to do this. But, I kind of enjoy demolishing things, and this was kind of fun. I was able to salvage quite a bit of wood. And considering the cost of plywood today, that's probably not a bad thing to do. But after a little bit of effort, I finally got this thing torn apart, and was very happy with what I was able to save. Screws and glue on anything you're only going to use for 6 months. It was a little hard to get apart, but I was able to save most of the wood. And this piece right here is more than enough for the base for what I need to build. And so I'm good to go. I started cutting the 2x4s for my base and risers. And the first thing you'll notice is that my dust port came off on my miter saw. Hey, it didn't work very well anyway. Certainly a future project for me is to try to improve that. There's a lot of great ideas out there on the internet. And I hope to either utilize one of those or maybe even try to improve for my needs. Got all the cross members cut, and I think next time I will set stops instead of measuring each piece individually. That will certainly save me some time and improve my accuracy. Well, I don't know about you guys, but I am a big fan of the Kreg pocket hole jig tools. I love these things. I only have the base model, but I use them all the time, and they work just wonderfully for me. And I use them to assemble almost the entire lumber rack, and it just works well and provides a nice, clean finish. Can't say enough good things about these, and I'm not even getting sponsored by it. Well, once I got all that done, I was able to put the base assembly together. I used clamps to kind of hold things in place, and then just put my pocket hole screws in, which works really good. and was very happy with how the base came down. And once I got that put together, I just set the top on top of it and used some 1-inch screws to put the 1/2-inch top on the base, and I was all set. And now I'm starting to put the risers together, and you'll notice that the cross pieces are cut at an angle. That's actually a 5-degree angle. And again, use pocket holes to screw these together. And I cut some scrap pieces so I could clamp this together at a perpendicular direction in an effort to build the risers. Now I'm installing the risers on the base, and again using the pocket hole screws to do that, and screwing right into the 2x4s underneath the 1/2-inch plywood. In hindsight, I probably shouldn't have put the wheels on the base before I put these in place. I was able to lock the wheels in place, so it didn't move around too much, but that was just kind of a mistake on my part. I did use a spacer to space the risers a little bit distance away from the end and clamp that spacer in place so I could put the riser up, and it went pretty well. And I built 3 of those all together, which was plenty sufficient for what I was trying to do. Installing the 3rd one was a little bit more difficult because I didn't have a spacer to lean against. I did measure it, and you can see I measured it twice. Just wanted to make sure it was spaced evenly and would be in the right position. Wouldn't you know it, here's where my sound went out. What a bummer. Anyway, I used some scrap 2x4s to put across the top and hold all 3 risers in place before I put the shelves on. That gave me an opportunity to square everything up and make sure the shelves could hold everything in place. Worked out pretty good. I also put these rear supports 2x4s in place, again using my pocket hole jig, in an effort to add some additional strength to the frame. Hey, I'm done and very happy with it. Love the space for the sheet goods on the front and the shelves in the center. Yeah, I probably would have wanted to fill those gaps between the sheet goods and the shelves. And actually, I went back later and did that because I kept having pieces of wood fall down off the shelf and didn't like that. Love the 4-inch piping on the back for some of the strips of wood that I use for trim or building cutting boards. And overall, I'm very happy with the way it turned out. And I think it's going to be a great lumber rack for my needs. And that's it. Well, here it is, finished, and I've got it all loaded up. I put my, what I call big sheets of stuff on the front, which isn't very big, but that's the kind of the way I work. On the top, you can see I put my longer boards that I can just pull out and access. I can access stuff from the side and the back. And the interesting part about this is I wanted to save little pieces for like cutting boards or trim. I put this pipe here to be able to do that, and then I've got buckets that have other pieces of wood that I just can't part with, and I can put buckets on the top and the rest of the lumber storage down below. So for me it works because I like to save a lot of pieces, or a lot of small pieces. And the nice thing is, look at this. It fits in here absolutely perfect for my needs, and that's what I wanted. Thanks for watching.